Believe that men fail to be introspective. I think we hate feminists. I think we do not value life. I think we're angry, irritable people who are constantly on edge, frustrated, insecure, vile, filled with vitriol, self hatred, and violence. My name is Ian. Welcome to video number 1 of Why Men Kill. So I posted, and I have a Substack. I like this very close, intimate format for YouTube. I think that it's really, really nice. I posted a thread, right, where I made the statement after listening to a lovely doctor by the name of Dr. Rita. I will not disclose her last name until I get her permission. But she made the statement that there were individuals located in the Keys, that men who were sticking things in their anal cavity, and how those men would do these things in private. Like, they do them in private. And after doing those things in private, there were like potential cases and actual cases where these men had these things caught inside of their rectums. They got stuck inside. And eventually it got to a point where they would not call the police. And you'd think, well, if I got something stuck inside of my mouth, or if I swallowed a quarter, I would go to the hospital, I would get some kind of help. Or if a book got lodged into my foot, I would go get some help, right? And those things, they're not revolved around some kind of embarrassment, but they're revolved around the understanding that bodily harm has been caused to you, and you need to go and receive some kind of help, right? So after these things happen to these men, they wouldn't receive help. This continued to transpire for, from what I can remember her telling me, months, right? We have cases where, or we have an understanding based off of these cases and based off of these studies, that men are fearful of receiving help when it comes to potentially being exposed about their internal desires. This obviously is a direct contrast to the construct of masculinity, and how an individual who is a man feels that he must perform to a certain extent so that he is not seen as lesser than, or he does not feel some level of embarrassment when it comes to his own personal pleasures and enjoyment. And that is what prompted me to come up with the prompt that I have on my Substack and on my TikTok and everywhere else that I post videos. Men should unclench masculinity and clench dildos instead. Now, obviously, it's an aggressive metaphor, but the whole point is to basically say that men cling to the idea of what masculinity is in hopes of feeling validated by the other men around them, because they understand and recognize what validation is when you receive it from a man. Brownie points, being seen as cool, being seen as strong, being seen as valiant. There are soldiers who receive medals for being violent, or taking the lives of hundreds of people for their country, or looking a certain way, or walking a certain way, or having a level of achievements, and America rewards that. But if a young man releases a study of how he has found that introspection is fantastic for men, and shows that their neural pathways and the ways that they're able to emotionally regulate themselves over a period of time get better, they look at his research, call him a nerd, call him a wimp, call him feminine, and say that what he has to offer and bring to the table is obsolete. As I ran this poll and ran this prompt, I noticed that a majority of the men that I spoke to had one difficult issue: getting past the word dildo. It seems that a lot of men will associate the idea of something that is masculine with anything that does not pertain to their own bodily, like their own bodily genitalia. I have to censor for YouTube, right? So when we look at what a dildo is, it's an inanimate object. And it frustrated men because with having the difficulty of understanding the metaphor, they assumed that you were asking them to do a what they would consider, under the lens and the construct of patriarchy and masculinity, a dirty act. Sorry, my brain, needed words. And if they were viewed as a person who was doing a dirty act in front of people, in front of a collective, then there was potential that they would be shamed. I'm still doing this prompt, I'm still running this prompt, and I'm recording data from it. But one of the things that I've noticed that most men will do is, even through confusion, they will come up from a perspective that to a degree is from a defensive standpoint, where even if they do not understand, they will make clear that they disagree. Because to agree would, based off of their understanding of masculinity, would show in some way that they would be fine with something going up their rectum. And that is considered not masculine, regardless of the fact that it's just a form of expression. You're not practicing fellatio or copulating with another individual of the same sex as a man. And that, as we all know, when it comes to having same sex, that you are committing what is considered by the common collective, based off of the knowledge that we all have, a gay activity. These men perform even when they're prompted with things that they want to know about. And when we recognized that it prompted curiosity in their brains, we continued engaging with these men. We asked them questions revolved around what they felt about the topic specifically, how they believed that masculinity was a positive thing, and if masculinity as a whole was something that men embraced, would they have better experiences receiving psychiatric help to some degree moving forward in the future? Would we see men who were open to the idea of going to therapy or speaking to a family friend or someone close to them without feeling shame about the things that they think about in privacy/secrecy? And a majority of the responses that we received from these men, who with the focus group that I'm focusing on because I'm addressing men, were them basically dismissing the prompt entirely by saying that it was either A, disrespectful, B, didn't make sense, or C, aggressive and intentionally designed to rage bait an individual. When in all actuality, with enough literacy and understanding of a metaphor, we could really understand truly what the question was asking. Are men able to let go of the construct of masculinity, and through introspection, will they continue to learn more about themselves through their own forms of expression? And does masculinity as a whole detrimentally affect the long-term psychiatric health that a man can experience throughout the later years of his life? Now think about andropause. Think about, my mind completely blanked. That's okay. There we go. Think about andropause. Think about growing old, growing irritable, decreasing in having your testosterone decrease, and potentially being someone who is rigid or someone who aligns with what they believe is supposed to be masculine, and never actively taking the time to be introspective or to go receive help or to push towards some kind of therapy, and seeing so many other men around you who are not fitting inside of the construct of what you were conditioned to believe, or what that person was conditioned to believe is what's considered to be masculine. After seeing that, feeling angry or frustrated because the internal feelings that you have towards the desires that you want to show and or express are being fluidly expressed by your male counterparts, your peers. And that can be and that would obviously be frustrating to an individual, right? So what this shows and what the study shows is that some men truly, one, are to a very fine degree illiterate, two, are not able to expound without speaking from anecdotal perspectives and addressing statistics and addressing the reality of what these prompts are actually asking. And three, they tend to show aggression, tend to be very irritable, and 9 times out of 10 don't have the ability to expound or further express their understandings of what the question is trying to, or what it's conveying, or what it's asking the reader to basically think, or prompting the reader on, and allowing themselves as that one individual person to digest the topic and obviously speak on it. What I believe men will need to do is to let go of a majority of the constructs that are revolved around masculinity and allow themselves ultimately to just live as human beings. Rather than thinking they have to perform as a man, recognizing that being a man is just biologically having different genitalia than a woman. And that these constructs that we have created for us to fit inside parameters, for other people to basically tell us how we should be living life, are ultimately and detrimentally affecting our mental health and our long-term psychological health as well. I think that we as men could take a lot more time really learning to be so much more expressive and no longer shaming individuals who are comfortable expressing themselves, regardless of what other people say or think they should be expressing themselves as. So, yeah, this is one of my, I really like this topic. I love this prompt, and I love what I believe that it can bring to the community of men. These videos will eventually blow up the more and more that I post them, and people will come back to these and see what I'm doing, and will recognize that I'm working to make history. I want men to be less harmful, to be less violent, and to learn to love ourselves a lot more than we portray that we do. Thank you, One Take.